everybody. This is another episode of Awesome Vegans. My name is Elizabeth Alfano. I have with me the very fabulous Brad Barbera. He is the Director of Innovation for the Good Food Institute. And I kind of just want to set this up as to what we're doing here in Chicago. There's been a lot of talk about the 4.1 million birds and the 5,500 pigs that were basically locked in their cages and left for dead as livestock. In the wake of the horrible hurricanes, poor North Carolina, my heart goes out to you. So there's been a lot of talk about environmental damage from agriculture, particularly factory farming, and the UN report came out about climate change. So we're going to talk about all that, and Brad brings a very unique perspective. But what I love about talking to the Good Food Institute is they're here to really say solutions, what we can do about it moving forward, and realistic facts. So I speak for myself here on Jane Unchained, but it is my perspective only. I'm not here to demonize one side, and I'm not here to praise another. I'm here to find solutions. I'm here to move forward. So with that, I kind of wanted to open it up to Brad. First, before we get into the big things like changing the world, tell me what the Good Food Institute does and what you do particularly there.
Well, we are a 501c3 organization, so a charitable organization that is devoted to creating a more sustainable, healthy, and humane agricultural system, food
Thank
system.
you.
And in that, one of the things that we are addressing is animal agriculture in particular, and finding ways to provide all of the protein needs of a very rapidly growing population, while still addressing issues around the environment and health and animal welfare.
Okay, so let's kind of separate some of these things. So as I understand it, and you just correct me, you are the fact person here. I understand it that factory farming, there are more greenhouse gas emissions than planes, trains, automobiles, taxis, all of this combined. So farming, animal agriculture affects the climate much more than any of our transportation modes. Is that correct?
That is correct. And that when I found that out, I was absolutely staggered. So, if I'm driving down the street and I see, diesel fumes coming out of a truck, immediately I think, oh, wow, that's not good. But I had no idea that animal agriculture actually contributed, I believe the latest estimate was 40% more greenhouse gases. And the impact is magnified by a lot of those emissions being methane, which is actually a bigger contributor to global warming than carbon dioxide.
Yes, and again, you correct me if I've got this wrong, but in layperson's terms, I understand that methane melts the polar caps. This brings in more light to our Earth, melting more ice, and you have just this growing exponential effect. I think we as the world, even if we didn't have the UN climate change report out, I think we as the world kind of know like something's not right.
I think we can definitely say that something is not right. I will be the first to say I'm not a climatologist, so I have no expertise in that area, but the impacts around these gases clearly can't be good.
Right.
In the long run, if you look at the Paris Climate Accords, in order to try to limit that warming to 2 degrees, an organization called Chatham House, which is in the UK, they're like one of the biggest and most prestigious think tanks around. They've actually come out and said that we cannot achieve those accord targets without addressing animal agriculture. And so it truly is something that, in the long run, we absolutely have to address.
And this is strange to me because we've had, of course, so much reporting on this UN climate change report that just came out, but very few reports. In fact, I haven't seen any media coverage saying that there's a link to what we are currently experiencing because of agriculture, farming, animal agriculture.
Right. And I think the another important aspect of this is that it's not just global warming. It is also immediate local impacts where the animal waste, the antibiotics that are used, there's a wide variety of impacts that are immediate and localized. So take, for example, the impact with Florence in North Carolina, and I totally agree. Hearts goes out to everyone in North Carolina.
Yes.
Some of the animal waste is collected in things called lagoons, and some of those lagoons, I believe over 20, actually spilled over. One was completely destroyed, and all of that animal waste is now potentially introducing salmonella, E. coli, antibiotic pharmaceuticals into the groundwater.
Right.
So it isn't just a long-term global warming thing. It is actually immediate and here now.
And I think that there have been some lawsuits around this damage that has happened to the local communities because in this season in particular, but not only this year, I think there have been others in the past where certain industries, we're not naming names at this point, but certain industries have been tagged with large lawsuits.
Yeah, there was one actually, again, in North Carolina. It seems to be the focus of things this year. But a $470 million judgment because of the nuisance of some of the noxious pollutants that come out of animal agriculture.
That affect those communities directly.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. So as I started this broadcast, I said, I'm not here to point fingers. I'm here to talk about solutions. And I really want to get into that with Brad. I think that's very important as we move forward. But I think on many levels, we as a society can come together and say, we don't want to see toxic waste being spilled. I think there are very few things that bring Democrats and Republicans together these days, but one of them is animals. I don't think anybody wants to see, at least all the friends that I talk to anecdotally on both sides of the aisle, nobody liked seeing 4.1 million birds, 5,500 pigs. Nobody liked hearing that they were just locked in their cages left to drown. That doesn't sit well with anybody. Obviously, nobody wants to see their friends and family beat up on the East Coast, hurricane after hurricane. So we have an issue. At the same time, and I want to give all sides their fair due, nobody wants to see farmers out of work, and no one's looking to say this one person is bad. It's all of us, people. We're all doing it all together. So we, as a group, have to change for our own best interest. I'll add to that for the interest of the planet and the animals, but just for ourselves. So let's go ahead and talk about solutions, because I'm not here to put farmers out of business either.
Right.
Maybe we can shift our businesses, though, and be smarter. After all, he is the director of innovation, so who better to tell us what our next steps are?
I'll certainly try. So the Good Food Institute is really focused on a couple of things primarily, and that is plant-based meats and clean meats. And I'll distinguish between the two. So plant-based meats are immediately available. They're out there now. If you've ever had an opportunity to try the Beyond Burger or the Impossible Burger or some of the latest products coming out of Morningstar Farms and Gardein and Boca, they're really producing some high-quality products that look, taste, perform just like meat.
Shout out to Upton's Natural.
Absolutely. Field roast, one of my favorites.
Love you, field roast.
And sorry, if I have left you off of the list of wonderful products, I apologize, but there are lots of them out there.
Follow your heart. I love you.
So they're all products that are produced based on plants, pulling the plant proteins out, and plants do have a lot of proteins, contrary to some popular myths, and putting those together in products that really behave like meat. And some people ask me, like, why worry about meat analogs? Why don't you just tell people eat more plants? And the reason is people love these products.
Yes.
And if you want an innovation to get out into the world, you need it to be familiar. You need it to be something that people really want and enjoy. And that's one of the things I love about the Good Food Institute is we're advocating the development of products that taste good, they're convenient, and they're priced right.
I interviewed Ethan Brown of Beyond Meat, and he said something that resonated with me. At first, I had to do a double take, but then I was like, oh, he's so right. He said, I have a lot of respect for meat eaters, because the fact is, we all grew up eating meat, and we all have. Who among us didn't start out, even I think Gandhi ate meat before he was Gandhi, so, all right, we all know where we were. Let's focus on where we're going. So what I love about the plant-based products is that it is familiar and it does give you an option. First of all, variety is the spice of life, but also, if you're used to having a burger, just switch your burgers. In fact, this morning I was doing a cooking demonstration on WCIU, shout out to the U, and I was telling folks, if you're used to just buying your yogurt over here, let your fingers do the walking in the aisle and buy your almond yogurt or cashew yogurt. Or, just it's a simple replacement and people have options. Long gone are the days of you live on carrots and that's all you got. That's not what we're talking about anymore.
Exactly. And the difference now is that plant-based products have been around for decades, but they were known as kind of like plant-based substitutes, and now particularly with Impossible and Beyond, they are no longer trying to be the best vegetable burger. They're trying to be the best burger, period, and really trying to make these things just exquisitely delicious, and they're succeeding. They're really they have just taken that hurdle up such a high degree that now it's easier for somebody who loves their meat.
Yes.
You don't have to sacrifice.
You don't.
You can have something that is plant-based and fantastic.
So, quick little shout out to Beyond Meat. I'm tired of going to the grocery store and having all your stuff sold out all the time. So, every time I'm going to Whole Foods, even Ralph's in California, or even here, Mariano's in Chicago, there's the demand is so high, I can't get them. So, shout out to Beyond Meat. You're doing something right, and please make more.
And they have tripled their production capacity recently there. So, they're investing in this in order to make sure that you can have their products.
Thank you. We need a whole plant and facility just for me, just for my consumption. But I'm not alone. So, let's talk about you as the Director of Innovation. You were talking to me earlier this morning. We had coffee. Hope you all have yours. You were talking to me about how innovation moves through society, how people accept change and come to embrace it. Tell me a little bit what that's like.
Sure. Well, there's different stages. Different kinds of people are more receptive to different kinds of innovations. And you have somebody like me. I'm the Director of Innovation because I love innovation. So I will try new things all the time. It's really easy for me. Other people like something that's a little more familiar. So innovation tends to diffuse through society in stages, and you start off with a small group of people like me who are just I'll try anything new. We will then tell our friends, and some of them are what we call early adopters. So they will say, "Well, Brad tried it; he didn't die. Great, I'll give it a try too." But then you have you need to expand that from the early adopters to what we call the early majority. So this is where you really get something out into society. And you have to make a bit of a leap there where no longer is it people that are adventurous and wacky like me. You need that respectable person, that normal person who then tries it, and maybe they've seen it and they can start saying, I relate to that person. I know that person. That's somebody who I like. They're enjoying it. They're liking it. I'll try it too. And that's when you get it out into this broader segment of the population. And we are now in that phase, especially with plant-based products, where people are starting to get into that early majority that they're seeing, wow, these products are not just for people who are vegetarians, for example. These are products for me. And once you get to that, that's when society can really start adopting these innovations.
Yes, and I know just on this podcast, I've seen a lot of that because I've interviewed a lot of people that maybe you don't know they're plant-based, and then you realize, oh, hey, that person, I've always admired them, who knew that they were plant-based. So I just had an interview with Chicago Bears punter, number 16, Pat O'Donnell, sweet, sweet, sweet guy, and he's all plant-based, and he was talking to me about his favorite go-to foods and what he likes to eat, and he does this all while practicing and working out with the Bears and being one of their star players. So you just never know how many people have decided for their health, for their heart, for their community, for their wallet even, because being sick is awfully expensive, that they've decided to go plant-based. And I think you're seeing more and more of that. Am I correct in that statistic?
I think you're definitely seeing more people that weren't previously the people you saw being plant-based.
Okay.
So one of my favorite examples is a recent U.S. weightlifter who was on the U.S.
Yes.
Olympic team is entirely plant-based. So people will often
And
think,
winning.
oh, if you're a vegetarian, you're a vegan, oh, you're going to be skinny, scrawny. Not the case at all. There's plenty of protein to be had from plants, and we're seeing that people are adopting that lifestyle and still succeeding in athletics that require a lot of strength.
Yes, yes. And you're seeing these people win and take home medals and be
Right.
at the front of their game. In fact, there's a couple organizations, we have the Game Changers movie coming out, which is going to be talking all about athletes, usually male athletes, but not only male athletes, who've really upped their game. And then there's the Switch for Good organization that has athletes who've decided to get rid of dairy to enhance their performance because dairy was holding them back. I know on this show, I've interviewed Leilani Munter, who's a race car driver. She's all plant-based and doesn't hurt her performance. I just interviewed Tia Blanco, the surfer, who is the gold medalist. She's trying out for the Olympics now for 2020 in surfing, but up until now, she's won all the gold medals for the Olympics equivalent in surfing. So I think it's a very exciting time to see how many people are feeling better. They actually have more energy because animal proteins aren't weighing them down.
Right. No.
So let's talk a little bit about clean meat. So we were talking about the
Yes.
plant-based, I don't even want to call them substitutes because they're just darn good, right? So the plant-based food that tastes super good. And if you doubt that they taste good, hit me up. You can find me on my website. I'm not kidding. ElizabethAlfano.com. Let me cook for you because I love to cook for non-vegans, for non-plant-based people who haven't tried it yet. Let me cook for you. It's the thing that I love to do. So hit me up. I'm not kidding. But we have plant-based options, and then we have clean meat. Talk to me about this.
So thank you for reminding me. I have to come back and explain what clean meat is. So clean meat is actual animal meat. It's the animal's tissue. It's muscle fibers and fat, but it's made without an animal. It's produced. If you can imagine, if you've ever been to a microbrewery and you see the large, pretty, clean, shiny tanks. That's where these would be produced. Very, very similar. And you take actual animal tissue and put it together in something that is basically just like a real animal meat product, just no animal slaughter required, and none of the waste products that go into raising an animal over time.
So this is wonderful. I want to dive into that a little bit. We talked earlier about the farmers. So if we don't have all these farmers with animals, we waste so much because we grow the wheat and then we don't feed it to people.
Right.
And soy and other things. We feed it to animals who only give us about 30% back because we're not eating the bones and the blood and the ears and the tail and the eyes and et cetera, the organs. So it's a very inefficient equation. Doesn't make sense from a profitability standpoint. And then we have to subsidize it because, again, it doesn't make sense from a profitability standpoint. So I think there are ways we could move over to the farmers to growing more vegetables, grains, things basically that you see on the no longer food pyramid, but food plate. You see that we need vegetables, we need fruits, we need grains, whole grains. So I think we could move the farmers over. Is that accurate?
That is certainly our hope. Now, you have to be careful with that because different land is used for different purposes.
Absolutely.
And so what might
Understood.
be good for grazing cows may not actually be good for raising pea protein, for example. But we do believe that there is plenty of option for a shift that would be able to feed the world, hopefully be even healthier, and still provide the protein needs.
Yes, and that's great. So you save then on these government subsidies that are just propping up a business strategy that doesn't really work anymore, I think, on a financial level, but also on a personal level as we see all these outcomes from our habits. It's all of us, folks. It's not just like 3 people.
Right.
I'm not pointing the finger. It's all of us, me included. I wasn't vegan my whole life. I started vegan 3 years ago. So, it's all of us. We got here and now we got to get ourselves out of it, all of us together. So, okay, if we switch over to growing grains and other things, hopefully we're not going to see people out of work, which is not what any of us want.
Exactly.
But then also, how large do you think the clean meat industry would be? What kind of job potential? You may not know the answer to this. I don't want to put you on the spot. What kind of job potential do you think you could see out of clean meat?
Oh, the potential with clean meat in so many ways, whether it's jobs or products, it's just immense. And so, if you permit your imagination to just go down a path, it is just crazy the kind of things that are potentially true with clean meat. Again, I want to be careful because there are still a lot of technical hurdles that need to be overcome to really make these potentials come true. But if you think about it, think about like a filet mignon. That's like the thing that everybody wants, and it's very expensive because it's delicious, it's tender, it's what everybody wants, but you only get a little tiny bit of it out of an entire cow. With clean meat, you're not limited to what cut of meat comes out of a cow. You could produce, in theory, whatever kind of meat you want, and it will be lower cost. Again, a lot of technological hurdles to overcome, and there are some great developments going on throughout the world. This is actually a global thing, not just in the U.S. But when we can get to some of the potentials with clean meat, I think you're going to see just some amazing things coming down.
So I'll just say, side note, I don't have the big bucks, but if I had the big bucks, I'd put it in clean meat. I would. I just think that's a huge opportunity. I see that as, I mean, we've got some years before it gets to market. How long do you think it will be?
Oh, I hate that question.
Okay, sorry.
No, the reason I hate those questions is because when you're looking at overcoming these hurdles, we believe we have a lot of great directions to make that happen. We have some companies saying it is imminent, within the year.
Within the year?
Within the year. There's one company in particular that was really hoping they can launch something this year. There are plenty of other companies who are saying in the next 5 years. Some have said we'll see products on market within 5, and we'll have them competing on cost with current animal-based products within 10 years. So, I mean, these things are on the edge. But again, we're dealing with predicting a future based on overcoming technical hurdles, and that's always a little bit unpredictable. So we see a lot of investors who are really, really high on these products. They see this as the long-term future of feeding the planet. So it's very, very exciting, but I won't let you pin me down on a year.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough. I'll moonwalk out of that one. Okay, on to the next. So sometimes I get questions on this podcast, well, we shouldn't be working with the people who got us here, and the people. It's kind of all of us. We all got us here. The people who have, large manufacturers who've really benefited off of animals. And I get the logic there. I'll just say for myself and this podcast, again, these are my views only, so maybe other folks on this channel think differently, but I just think maybe, but I'm looking ahead and how do we get out of it? And so what do you think about working with investors who formerly were with meat or still are with meat?
I will say, our mission is to help plant-based and clean meats get to market faster than they normally would. And I'll tell you, just based on population growth and the increasing protein needs there are in the world, there is no way this is not happening. It has to happen. Our mission is to make it happen as fast as possible to encourage these industries' growth. Anything that will help us get there, I think, is a wonderful thing.
Me
so
too.
If you have some of the larger meat producers investing in this and they're reframing themselves not as meat companies, they're reframing themselves as protein companies, which is just phenomenal. And they're investing in this space because they see it as the future too. And I welcome that.
Yeah, and I do too. And here's what I love. So we saw at the last election, whether you like the outcome or not, we saw that people change things. So if you didn't like that last regime, well, look, the people have spoken, things have changed. And so I think we really, as a society, again, Democrats or Republicans alike, nobody likes to see animals harmed in factory farming. Nobody feels great about being part of that machine, even if, we buy things with our wallets. So nobody feels great about contributing to that. So I think there's a lot to be said for all of us kind of getting behind these new possibilities.
Great.
And that's what we the people, that's what we do. We create change. Very rarely in my understanding, and I welcome this discussion, so follow up with me on Facebook, very rarely do governments come in and say, I know, let's make things better for people. I have not experienced that.
No.
Usually it's the people. It starts from the ground up. The people say, I want something else. I want a change. And I think we all want change.
I agree. And I think that's true with innovation in general, is that the government will typically step in after the innovation is already
and
kind
try
of
to take
taken a
credit.
foothold. Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
nice job.
Yes.
Well, okay, so our time is a little limited today. So I did want to just ask Brad some quickie questions. I love to ask these questions. They're quick, off the top of your head, one-word answers. What are we always going to find in your fridge?
Oh, my goodness. Okay, so I just talked about how I'm an innovator and I like to try new things. So one of the problems with that is I rarely have the same thing twice. I'm always trying new things. But I will say they're plant-based sausages are almost always in my fridge, whether they're hot dogs or Italian sausages, because what I never realized before is they're super high in protein. They're really low in fat.
I know.
They're really great, quick things to go to.
And they're always tasty. Yeah.
Always.
I feel the same.
Sorry, not a one-word answer. I blew it there.
That's okay. That's okay. It's funny. Just to backtrack a teeny bit, you had talked about how there are different agents of change. Okay, so I know what you mean about some people who don't accept change, because I'm just like Brad. I like to try new things, so my fridge always has lots of different things. But in the area of technology, I just don't want to face it, and I'd still use a landline if I could. I'm one of those people. So I think sometimes you can have people like yourself that take all the change in the world, or sometimes people say, ooh, I'll try a new car, but I won't try a new food.
Absolutely.
And
right.
that's what's so great about these plant-based things, like a plant-based sausage. A lot of people find comfort in the meat that they grew up with, or what their mom made them, or there's a lot of emotion tied to food, as we all know. So
very true.
This really brings you back to, you don't have to give something up. You're adding something in. You're not giving up, which is what I love about these options.
That's what I love about the Good Food Institute. Our approach is not to yell at people or inform them and educate them and suddenly expect they're going to have a transformation. It's simply, we're going to give you something that tastes great, it's priced right, and it's convenient, and it's familiar. You know how to deal with it.
Yes.
In terms of that diffusion of innovation, if something is more familiar, people are more willing to accept it.
I get that.
And so people ask me, like, why not just tell people to eat more plants? And the answer is they want something that's more familiar. They don't want to go to tofu. They want a burger. So we're just giving them a plant-based burger.
Okay, so if you've learned anything from this podcast, it is hit me up if you want me to cook for you, because I love to cook for people. And 2, hit me up if you aren't finding exactly what you want in the plant-based version. You can't find it in your grocery store. Hit me up, because sometimes it is in a different place than what you're used to, but it's there. And then once you know where to find it, you just grab it like you would have grabbed anything else. So I can help you navigate the grocery store if you need me to. Okay, back to Brad and his quickie questionnaire. Okay, so you've been working, you travel a lot. What is your one go-to meal? You know that every time you can make it, takes 5 minutes, it's always good.
Oh, well, so I feel like I have to change my answer from the sausages, which are that it truly is kind of my go-to meal. I'll tell you, my daughter is a fantastic vegan chef. She's only 13, and she's just wonderful, and she makes a killer tofu recipe. She made it for me last night, and then she uses riced cauliflower instead of rice. Ooh. So it's just such a great, healthy meal, and it is delicious. So,
really?
Yeah, and anytime I'm with her, I'll let her make that.
Oh, can we do a shout-out to your daughter?
Absolutely. Sophia, shouting out to you, babe.
Hi, Sophia. Hi, Sophia. Okay, so it doesn't have to be healthy. What's your favorite junk food? And it can be healthy if you want it to be.
So I have tried to recently give up a lot of junk food, but I will go with the vinegar and salt potato chips.
Ooh,
oh my God, yeah,
devilish,
awfully hard to resist.
Sinful and good. Yes, I'm with you. No, I feel it. Okay, this is maybe going to take a little bit of thought. What do you wish you knew 10 years ago that you know now?
Oh, I have learned so much about with joining GFI, which I still haven't even had my first anniversary yet. So I'm getting close, but I've learned so much with GFI about some of the issues around animal agriculture that I would never have known. And I wish I had known that 10 years ago and could have started on some of the changes in my own personal lifestyle as well as trying to advocate out in the world.
So I hear that a lot on this podcast, in particular with dairy. A lot of people say they wish they had realized the inherent cruelty behind the dairy process. We're not going to get into it right now because we're just about to run out of time, but hit me up again if if you're interested in that. No pressure, no harm, no foul if not. But a lot of people feel that way, that once they knew, oh gosh, they wish they had known that. I'll also say for myself, I wished I had realized early on that I have to advocate for myself. I can't wait for the government to say, oh, this is USDA approved, or I need to figure it out for myself, my body, my thought, the way I roll through the world. I can advocate for me, and I'm really the only one who can. It's really nobody else's job. It's my job, and I got to do it. I got to advocate for me, and I wish I'd realized that early on.
I agree.
All right, we're winding down. So I have another question for you, and this maybe also requires a little bit of thought. I feel like you have a distinct purpose in what you're doing. You seem very driven. Is there one thing that you'd like to be known for?
I actually gave a presentation not too long ago about this, and I had a wonderful mentor who taught me this called the rocking chair test. And taught me this a long time ago when I was just all stressed out about, work was going bad. And he just said, Brad, imagine yourself retired. You're sitting in your rocking chair. Whether you're overlooking a beach or the mountains or a prairie, whatever. Is this something you're going to be worried about at that point? And I had to admit, no. And he said, you make your life decisions based on what you're going to be reflecting on. And coming to this area, I've always been passionate about hunger and poverty and trying to find both local and global solutions to that. I'm feeling now like I'm doing something professionally that is going to allow me to leave a legacy. And it's going to be that thing when I am in my rocking chair, I'm going to say, wow, I left the world hopefully a little better place than I found it. And that's what I want to make sure I do.
Yeah, I do have to say that's a wonderful feeling, something that I never thought that I would get when I switched my diet. I wanted to feel better just because meat always left me feeling like, oh my God, I've been punched in the stomach, I can't move. And I certainly wanted to get rid of that feeling of being sluggish. I never thought I'd get this added boost by realizing that my actions aligned with my values in life. And I never realized that I'd get this like extra high for feeling like my money's not going to that, my money's not going to that problem, I'm not, and I'm certainly not perfect. I'm sure that I'm wearing something on my body that was involved in, I'm not perfect. But at least I'm trying, and that feels great. That feels empowering and great. So I agree. I
and
hear
nobody's
ya.
perfect.
And nobody's perfect.
And that's one of the things I also like about the Good Food Institute approach is we're not demonizing people.
Totally.
We're not screaming at them, you're doing terrible things. We're simply trying to offer an alternative that we believe is going to be better for a whole variety of reasons.
I'm totally down with that. And I love that you say that, because I don't know about you people, but I don't have time to demonize people. I got to get to the solution. Right. I got to get with the program and move on. So yeah, we've made mistakes. That's the past. Let's move on. Okay, so my last question for you. Yes. I hope you have one, but you may not. It's okay if you don't. Is there one phrase that you live by, or one or two that when you're in a tight spot, you say to yourself? I'll give you a couple examples. Like I always like to say, a body in motion stays in motion, or nose to the grindstone, eyes to the sky. These are things I kind of repeat to myself when life gets a little tricky.
I will. I'll now do a shout out to my dad.
Double shout out.
And he taught me many times, especially as I was screwing up as a kid, that you can run away from everybody, but you can't run away from yourself. And you have to live your life in a way that you are going to feel good about. You have to live with that integrity, because you can never get away from yourself. And that's always been an important lesson for me.
Well, huge shout out to your dad. Amen. Let's leave the podcast right on that note, that you have to be true to yourself. And that's up to you to decide. No one else tells you what that is, and no one else can judge you. So if you're just cutting back on meat, that's fine. If you're only doing it one day a week, it's Meatless Monday, that's fine. You do what you can do,
Right.
and you live with that for yourself.
Agreed.
All right, we are saying goodbye. I want to encourage everybody to, of course, go to my Facebook page, Elizabeth Alfano. Please find me there. You can find the Good Food Institute there on Facebook. So is Brad Barbera, so you can go to them as well. And then please hit up my website, elizabethalfano.com. I have lots of vegan recipes, lots of podcasts also on Awesome Vegans. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and don't forget to try vegan.
Thank
See ya.
you. Bye.
Bye.